about 2 hours in or so, man, and I'm still so wired into this chat, dude. Like, I've loved it. You gave me goosebumps.
You're talking about goosebumps. Like, I'm telling you, every player had goosebumps in this room, like, before we went up for that game against Honduras in Sydney for the World Cup qualifier, you know?
What was the best piece of advice you ever got from a coach or a mentor?
I think...
Big Matty Jurman for over 20 years. He's had over 300 professional appearances. He's been playing for 17 consecutive professional seasons. He's been capped as a Socceroo multiple times and been part of the World Cup, won A-Leagues. So you've obviously had an extremely successul run. And how are you still playing at this age and still competing at such a high level?
In that regard, I've been lucky, but I've also looked after my body as well. Bought some recovery things, getting to better, eating the right foods.
You've been around some big names, some big people, some great athletes. What do you think is the most defining character trait that you've seen consistently from the top 1% of people that you've been around?
I'd probably say...
G'day listeners, and welcome to another Top 1% podcast where we peer into the minds of the world's highest performing athletes, business owners, entrepreneurs, and everyone else out there achieving things at the absolute highest level out there in the world. Today, I've got a really interesting guest that I'm super excited to unpack his journey today. Obviously going down the athlete route today, and super exciting to pick this thing apart. And the reason is because I've known this guy for over 20 years. He's had a super long career, which that in itself is something I want to dissect, the actual longevity of this man's career. He's had over 300 professional appearances. He's been playing for 17 consecutive professional seasons. He's been capped as a Socceroo multiple times and been part of the World Cup squad as well, won A-Leagues back in the day as well. He's gone through a lot in his career and there's a lot to unpack, a lot of learnings, a lot of great wins, highs, lows, all the rest of the sort of thing, everything you would expect from an athlete's great journey. And so I'd like to welcome into the studio, Big Matty Jurman, mate. Welcome, buddy.
No, thanks for having me, man. It's nice to see you again and catch
pleasure,
up.
Man. Likewise, man. Absolute pleasure. Man, we're having a good chat before this and it's funny, man, like even just hearing like the journey of a few things while we're dissecting and prepping for this, and we're doing a bit of a property strategy session and running through some funny things. So, man, for one, it was good to catch up with you, but for two, it's just like inspiring to see success. And as I kind of led in there as well, man, even like the longevity of the career, how long you've still been playing for, and dude, you're still killing it, man. You're still playing at the top level in Australia, which is awesome to see, man. So first off, congrats to that, man. Big congrats.
Yeah, no, thanks. It's good to catch up with you obviously before and go through everything. But yeah, for me to still be playing, I think it's it's quite cool. But my body's probably not so happy with me. But yeah, I guess for me, we've known each other a long time, and I guess we've done a lot. Both in different parts of life, and now it's good to sit down with you and catch up.
Yeah, 100%, man. Dude, I'm looking forward to it. There's I think there is a lot to unpack, and obviously, man, go through a very, very lengthy career. Man, something I always love to do is drill right back to the start, right? You've got an impressive rap sheet that's obviously has been from an immense time period of actually being in the game as well. But if we go back all the way to the very start, which is where I always love to start, because there's always like these little intricacies that you can see that people grew up with, or their families, or like all these different things surrounding it that almost always shape someone in a particular way. And man, if we go all the way back to the start, and we talk about your family, the upbringing, obviously you're playing football, like soccer at a professional level for so long. If we drill back to even the upbringing as a child, for one, why soccer? Why did you get into it? And then, you've been a good player for a long time. So like, how did that then all mold and eventuate from there?
Yeah, I think, for me, I grew up in Wollongong. I was born there and grew up in a little part of Wollongong called Dapto, where, it's famous.
Are you from Dapto?
I am from
didn't know
Dapto.
that.
Yes.
No way.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that. And, obviously it's famous for, the dogs, obviously, but...
Dapto dogs.
Yeah, and I didn't realise, but it wasn't particularly known as a good area of Wollongong, going to school and stuff in year 7. They sort of... joked about where I live, and I had no idea, but I loved it there. So, I was proud to come from there, and I sort of played football for the club there, Dapto Soccer Club, and I started playing at 4 years old, and I think the first couple of years I sort of had a different coach, but then I had my dad as my coach, and played there till I was about 10, and for me, I just love playing with the ball, and probably not particularly at the start, where I've my mum and dad both told me, sort of focused on, because I loved animals, right, growing up, and
right.
I saw a butterfly running on the pitch, and so I was chasing butterflies apparently, and I don't remember this, but they tell me, so I'm just going by what
Maybe
they say.
they're just trying to humble you a little bit.
So I'm just going off what they say with that. But I played there till about 10, and then I went to Wollongong Wolves, and we sort of had the trial there, and.
Which at the time would have been NSL back then, right?
Yeah, they would have been.
NSL, So like, and Wolves were one of the biggest teams in Australia.
Exactly. Yeah. I think they went back to back around that time, and it was a great team to sort of go and watch every week when I was playing at the club. You try and watch the first team, and for me, I was always intrigued to sort of watch as many games as I could, and. The Wolves are doing really well, and I ended up trialing at the club, and I was playing midfield right until that trial, and my dad sort of said to me, there's a lot of midfielders here. Maybe you should look at trialing as a centre back, as a defender, and he was a defender as well, so. He probably wanted me to start moving towards the back as well,
His trial,
and so that's what happened. I sort of tried at the back, and I made it, and there were a lot of midfielders there. So who knows if I sort of went as a midfielder, maybe I wouldn't have made it there, But
a different path.
Yeah, different. Yeah, and I think that all the time, something happens in terms of a club, or you didn't make it, or you did make it, and that can change your whole pathway in terms of your career, And it's always interesting to think about now, but. I think, the Wolves were a good stepping stone for me. I stayed there for 2 years. Enjoyed it. Had a good team. Met some good mates of mine that I still talk to now. So
So from all the way back then, from 11s and 12s.
Yeah, exactly.
That's wild. That's crazy, man. That's crazy. Man, how much influence did your dad have on you when he was training you as a even like sub 10s, right? So like you're obviously playing with him at that point. It's actually funny because like my old boy used to coach me as well, and he would coach 2 years above, and I would play up in this. I think that's why I got the aggression, because I had to play against these older guys. So I always had to. I wasn't huge, right? I was small, so I always had to like fight everyone, for everything, right? And
I've got to fight for what you want. Huh?
Exactly, man. That's why I'm actually curious. I never knew that about you as well. Like, did you? How was that? Because a lot of people think, when your dad's a coach, he favors you, but like so often, man, it's actually the opposite. Yeah. So it's the same experience, right?
Yeah, I think so. My dad was, still to today, he's, always my hardest critic, and. I think
love it.
I think that makes you resilient, and makes you mentally strong as well from a young age. You think you've had a good game, and you're in the car on the way home. You're thinking, we won. I got the award, whatever. Wherever it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did this. You could have done that better. And I was like, you start thinking, you know what, I need to challenge myself, and I need to train more. I need to get better.
Yeah.
And I think, just growing up, I had that sort of, person in my life that was always challenging me to do more and be better. And there wasn't many times where I was, allowed to lie on the couch and sort of rest. He was always trying to say, you should be down the park, working on your touch or your opposite foot or whatever it was. And, I did a lot of one-on-one training with some different coaches as well around that time. And I think that helped me with my technique at the time and
the development
moving forward. And I think, my dad's had a big influence on my career, and I think for me, if I didn't have him pushing me, maybe I would have slackened off, or I would have, not been as mentally strong to be able to cope with things as I got older, so.
Yeah. Man, I'm sorry to digress a tad to my story, like my journey and what I've done in life as well. And it just I've got to, here's this it was almost the exact same, because my old boy was my coach, and I'd play a couple of years up, and it was never the commendations on what you did well. It was picking apart what you did poorly, or what you potentially could have done better. And it's funny, man, because I've never actually heard anyone else say the same thing,
have
right?
That experience, yeah.
And so, and in full transparency as well, man, you're the first athlete that I have interviewed on the Top 1% podcast, right? So first athlete I've introduced.
Pleasure to be here.
Absolute pleasure to have you here, man. And so I'm intrigued to see how many of those stories actually come up as well in other athletes' journeys. Now, obviously, my pathway went very different, and it's funny that you say like one decision or one thing or one club or one coach can actually completely change what happens. And I've got my own personal story around that. But man, I think it's so funny because that can competitiveness that I know that you have. Obviously, we played, we trained together for many, many years at Westfields. But then also like how you have carried that through for your entire career to date. Man, it like builds that. It's something different here that you're wired differently, right?
Yep.
From something that happened. And I apply the same now to a business side. I'm always like, what could I do better? I'm not looking at the trophies or what I've won or all right, the score sheet's cool at the end of the day, whether it's football or whether it's business. They're both, you want to win in both of them. But I think being pushed at that age, and this is the whole reason why I started this podcast. It's a passion project to actually learn about shit that like defines people. You know what I mean? And it's like, man, that's actually so cool to pull that out. I'm sorry to jump into it for a sec there, but it's so cool to like see the similarities, and we went different ways, but both very successful in each thing that we've done as well. So that's cool, man. I appreciate you sharing that with us.
No, it's also good to hear your side of the things because like, I guess you don't know what sort of you went through as a kid, and you know what pushed you, what motivated you, and it's good to hear that we're similar.
So similar, man. So similar.
We've got things in common.
And dude, it's probably why I know like there's a few things coming up, but like obviously the age you're at as well, you're even like, you've been speaking to me about like the pathways beyond football as well. You're not resting on your laurels. I'll finish. I've got this, I've got that or whatever. You're like, no, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? And man, that's a
same mentality.
Man, that's a crazy mindset. That's the one you want. That's a winner's mentality mindset. So I love that, man. I love that. If we move through that, and we're pretty much coming into the same sort of time frame that you and I came into contact, right? So for anyone that doesn't know, we're born about a month apart. We both entered Westfield Sports, which is probably the best sports high school in Australia.
I'd say so, yeah.
Definitely be up there, if not the best. And they select from about 3,000 kids, 12 kids per year. And I think in our year, there was 6 that were in the 89s and 6 that were 1990s, which was I'm the 90, you're the 89. We're literally a month apart. But man, talk us through that phase and that journey, because obviously that's when you and I came into contact, but being the year older, and also you went on a different trajectory as well, man, like with how quickly you took off as well, man. You know what I mean? Like a couple of years into there, like you were really flying and moving quickly. So I'd love to break down really how that looked the whole way through there, man. Because it's funny when you're a kid, right? Like you focus so much on your own thing until you look back and you're like, fuck, that person did well, or
that's true.
Whatever too. So
yeah, I mean, it's funny that you ask because my life. And I think this is one of the biggest things in terms of pathways for me and my family was my parents. They both decided to move from Wollongong to Sydney. Okay. So
I remember that you boys came up.
Yeah, and so I started high school in Wollongong. Yeah, did year 7 down there at a Catholic school, my parents sort of decided we're going to move to Sydney. So it wasn't straight away. It didn't go from Wollongong Wolves to Sydney. It was Wollongong Wolves to Parramatta Melita. Okay. And I was there for a year, traveling from Wollongong to Sydney 3-4 times a week, right? So that's pretty hard by itself, you know. And around that time, there was a lot of players that went from Wollongong to Parramatta. Around this time, they had a connection.
Do you remember I was in the team? Because I was the year below you. You talking about like Postecoglou and Goodchild and that?
Yeah.
Dude, I was in the...
Oh, actually, you were there.
I was 12.
Yeah, you were there. I remember that, actually.
Yeah,
you're right. Yeah.
The Manchester United Academy.
That's right, yeah. Oh, wow, I forgot about that. Yeah, I didn't realise you were there as well. There you go.
You with Rooney in that, like in the year... Was
Rooney came the year after, but like that was the year that, I was above you, obviously, and like a lot of people gravitated to Parramatta around that time because they're like, this is the next big club to be at.
I remember.
There's a pathway to Man United, all this stuff. Not that I'm a Man United fan, but
Liverpool.
I love that.
Let's do a quick table check right now. I mean, we don't want to call it too early because we won't come out to next year. I think we're 9 points clear for anyone tuning in.
That's very true. Yeah, big winner on the weekend.
That's it.
But going back to that, we were traveling from Wollongong to Parramatta 3-4 times a week. Yep. There was a couple of people in my team that were from Wollongong as well, and we took turns or whatever. Obviously, I wasn't driving at that time, but it was a big, responsibility for my parents and the other players' parents that were driving from there as well. Obviously, you were driving quite far as well to get there, and and then my parents just decided, like, we had some friends of ours, Nathan Smith and Graham Smith. Yeah, they moved up the year prior and went to Westwoods as well, and they were at Parramatta as well, and. Yeah, my parents sort of took the risk. Sort of.
Wow.
Could have been a lot more comfortable in Wollongong. Yeah. In terms of mortgage stress and all that, it was wasn't much to sort of be stressed about at the time. But they decided to give us the opportunity of moving to Sydney, and and giving us a good chance of going to a sports school that was very, well represented in terms of like, Socceroo players that have been there and stuff like that. So
the coaching staff was pretty deep too, man.
Yeah, exactly.
And Trev and Casey and all the rest of it, man.
So my dad actually got coached by Casey when he was playing. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. So,
do you remember he used to spit at you? Like he'd fire up at everyone in the front row.
He's still there.
Is he really?
He's still there.
No way.
Yeah.
He was a beast, man.
Yeah. I mean, he was one of the best coaches I had, I think, growing up. And I mean, obviously that's another story. But I think those guys sort of pushed us as well to, do well at school. And so moving from Wollongong to Sydney was a big thing, right? And I was in high school. I had a lot of friends, when you start high school, and I was actually the one that didn't want to move. I was like, no, I'm not ready. I don't want to move to Sydney. I obviously at the time, it was, you sort of thinking about the school that you're at, and you're happy with where you're playing at. But
you were at the Wollongong Sports School, right? Or were you the Catholic?
No.
I thought you were at the
I was going to go to that school,
Yeah.
but I ended up going to St. Joseph's Catholic School, which is based in Albion Park.
Okay.
So I went there and had a year there, and it was quite hard, to be honest, because like,
of course,
you're getting home from training in Parramatta around 10:30 at night.
Yeah, man.
And you got like a lot of homework and assignments, and I was struggling a little bit to keep up, and my parents helped me do that as well. And then eventually, once we moved to Sydney, things started like lining up a bit more.
Yep.
It was a lot easier to get to training, homework and stuff. Obviously being at Westwoods, it was quite easy. And we actually moved across the road from Westwoods.
I swear I remember that because you guys just walk across the road. Eh? I remember that, bro.
It's like 7:28. Training 7:30. Let's walk across the road now.
That's funny, yes.
But we moved across the road while we were we're renting that place, and my dad sort of was building a house that we're going to move into, and it was a big move for us, But I feel like it's paid off a lot.
Yeah, 100%. So the family uprooted what they were doing, their life in Wollongong down in Dapto, and they've moved up to Fairfield, literally straight across the road on bloody Hamilton Road as well, no less.
Busy Hamilton Road. We got robbed the first night.
Did you really?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, first night, everything was sort of packed away still, and we came back from being at the Smiths actually, and we got home and the door being kicked in, and everything was easy to be taken. So
it was already packed up.
Whatever it was,
you're a dog.
Congrats.
You're a dog.
You're a dog as well.
Yeah, that'd be nice, right? That'd be nice. Man.
You are a dog. Yeah.
I love it. So they've made the sacrifice, and I mean, even like talking about sacrifice from the very start, like the old boy is giving you lessons and learnings on the whole way through, and he's setting this bar here where your expectations of delivery is as a player, right? Even at that very young age.
Yeah, correct.
And then they've shown you the sacrifice piece of literally them uprooting their lives and then coming up here. Do they both would have had to have changed jobs as well?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Changed jobs.
It's an hour and a half from Dapto to bloody Fairfield.
Yeah, didn't know really anyone in Sydney apart from the Smiths, and everyone, all our family was based in Sydney. In Wollongong.
Yeah.
So, moving away from them was also like, a bit of a big thing, to move away from your family. And I mean, it's only an hour away, but you don't see them as much as, what you did. Big move for us. And, to this day, I'm very appreciative of that, because it was hard for them, and it led me to be able to get those extra training sessions in at Westwoods. Sometimes I was training 7 times a week, right?
Wow.
And that's maybe, what you need to do to be able to get those extra sessions in that you need to make it a professional. Like you got to be doing extras all the time, And when those days that we didn't train at Parramatta, we were going down the park and, training with me and my brother, my dad, we'd work on things, and that would be a constant thing from a young age. We'd always be down the park, just working on things, kicking the ball around and stuff.
100%.
So I think they pay off in the end. We don't probably realize at the time, but doing those extra things, they help you a lot.
100%, man. This is probably something that we could touch on at the end, but I'm curious as to like, what does your dad think now?
Coming obviously, closer to the end than the start, obviously, and we talk about it sometimes, and he's like, sometimes I get frustrated now because I'm just like, I'm not sure why things aren't, going to plan or whatnot, and sometimes, you're not playing or whatever now, and you think, and he's like, you know what, and it's big for him, to say this as the son hearing this, it's I'm proud of you. You've done everything that you really wanted to as a kid growing up. you ticked off boxes that, you know, people wouldn't have expected you to. And for me, that means a lot because, you know, there would have been so many people that doubted my parents, me, my family, you know, when we moved from Wollongong to Sydney. And I think, you know, to tick a lot of those boxes off, it means a lot. And, you know, to have that parent say, you know, who's been on hard on you and trying to push you your whole career, saying, you know, what, I'm proud of what you did and what you've done. Don't be, you know, so hard on yourself now. Just enjoy it and that's it, you know. So
how does that feel?
Feels great, you know. Feels great, you know, to because it's not easy to make it, as you know, and you know, to be playing this long, you know, where a lot of people my age just sort of don't play anymore. They've, you know, sort of retired or
100%.
Or they're going to retire. Yeah, it's a big thing, and I guess to sort of not repay my parents, but like sort of, you know, make them feel like they made the right move, you know, for me and my career. It does mean a lot, you know. So
yeah, 100%, man. Dude, I think, yeah, man, like you look at it as well, and I know exactly where you're coming from with it, man. And it's cool, hey, it's a humbling sort of thing on that end as well, and it would make you feel cool. But I think, man, like you're cap Socceroo, you know what I mean? You've played for so long at the level you've played at. I'm sure they're bloody proud, even though it's you know, the old boy said it, but it's probably it's a hard thing for him to probably say as well, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
like, I'm sure he's super proud of what you've done.
You've
done over these years.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. And I think those Socceroos games where, you know, they're all there. We qualified for the World Cup, you know, in 90,000, you know, packed stadium.
How was that, bro?
Man, to this day, I think that's one of my, you know, best days of my life. You know,
it's a highlight, career highlight.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
90,000.
90,000.
What did that feel like?
All Australians, pretty much.
Yeah.
You know, if you win, you go to the World Cup. Like, it's huge, you know. And I guess I can thank Ange Postecoglou as well for you know, bringing me in when he did and giving me the opportunity. And yeah, sort of I got a lot to owe him as well for giving me the opportunity of being a Socceroo and going to a World Cup. And yeah, for me, I think those days where the family came and, you know, that was really proud moments, you know, to sort of be involved in that, you know.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. I love that, bro. I love that. Should we give Ange a call to get the final, last couple of seasons at Tottenham? Whatever, a bit of a payday.
That'd be great, wouldn't it?
We'll get him on the phone. We'll make it happen.
All right, hey there, let's go.
I love it, mate. I love it. All right, dude. Let's keep moving through even through that youth. So that yeah, man, it's cool. It's really set the tone and the tempo of, like, we've got the sacrifice and we've got the performance, you know, limiter set really high, you know what I mean, in terms of what the expectation is as well. Plus the sacrifice of the parents to put you there, you know, and to make it such a accessible thing for you to be able to do now, as opposed to the huge commuting. And dude, I can relate to it. Like, you know, where I was, it was 2.5 hours on the train every day each way. And it was the same. I know it was the same for you in those early pieces. So I fully relate to it, dude. And that piece from them is, man, that's commendable. You know what I mean? People doing that. And I look at my parents as well, dude. They used to drive me all over. I played for Southo for 4 years or whatever when they had to drive me, and then Melita, the Sydney Olympic, like all that, man. You got to take your hats off to the parents who are willing to do it, man. I still thank my parents these days for, even though I didn't make it from a soccer, like from a career side of things, out of soccer.
Definitely helped you to become who you are today.
It builds something different inside you. And I think on reflection, if you're not an arsehole, I think on reflection, which I'm not saying you are, but if you're not an arsehole, you realize like how much sacrifice that came from them to do it. And even you being able to look back now and say the same thing. Man, it's cool, you know. It's it's a crazy thing, what parents will do for kids. But then look at the payoff. It's amazing as well.
I feel like parents back then were also built a bit different in terms of what they did work-wise, and then, you know, pick you up from work or whatever, took us to training, waited around, then got home, you know, made dinner, and then, you know, cleaned up, and then did the same thing for like the rest of the week, you know. It's like long days, man. Like,
crazy, bro.
Like I can't see too many people doing that these days, where obviously the work's changed a lot, and, you know, a lot of people working from home, and you know, everything's a lot of things changed, but just feel like they were like built different, you know.
Different breed, eh?
Yeah.
100%, man. I agree with you completely.
Yeah.
I agree with you, man. Dude, moving through that, right? And so we're moving into formulative years. How long did you spend at Melita? You spent a while at Melita, eh?
I ended up being there for 5 years.
5 years, yeah. I knew you were there for a bit.
Yeah.
Man, so Melita during that period, and so the 5 years would have taken you pretty much to the time when you got taken to the AIS as well, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That was pretty much the run through there. Shit, so you spent that whole formulative, whole of Westfields was at Melita?
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Right.
At Melita.
Sorry, it's your story, bro. I'll let you talk through. Sorry.
No, you're right. It's good to remember, to be honest. You're bringing back memories for me.
There we go.
No, but to be fair, like I did trial at Enswiss a couple of times, but I didn't make it actually.
So you didn't make Enswiss.
Yeah.
So for anyone who doesn't know, New South Wales Institute of Sport, you didn't make the New South Wales one, but you made the Australian Institute of Sport.
Correct, yeah. Yeah,
How does that make sense?
Well, those things actually hurt me quite a bit because at the time, a lot of the best players were going to the Enswiss,
I remember, man, yeah.
And, you sort of, got told, I had a meeting with the coach at the time that was there and, he sort of told me, you weren't, you were middle or above average, below average for, 20-meter sprints for the beep test and I think it was the vertical jump, right? Because
the athletic ability.
Yeah, they do the testing for Enswiss and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, fair enough. And he's like, just work on these things and, maybe in a year or two you can, come back and, we'll look at you. And I was like, yeah, this really this hurt, And I was 100%. Like, that was my sort of first time of not really making something, and I didn't make the state teams also around these years when, at Enswiss. And so I went for the meeting and he said, I'll work on these things. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah. Which I did, with my dad, obviously, when I told him. It's like, okay.
Oh, no, I got to tell dad this.
No, I didn't think of those things, the physical side. It was all about technique and stuff, they were working on with my dad. You take me down to the park and, I was doing extra sessions with a guy called Glenn Fontana. I don't know if
I know Fontana.
You know him as well.
Well, he was around Wolves.
He was in Wollongong, yeah. So I was doing more of that stuff, and then around that time it became more of the physical stuff, right? And I was at Westfields, obviously. I was at Parramatta, and then around that time I sort of Raul Blanco was the TD, or I don't know if you were there when he was technical director. I think
at Westfields
at Parramatta.
No. I only did one season and I went to Olympic.
Oh, okay. So it must have been John Reed or something like that.
No, sorry, what was that?
I had to throw that in.
So he was technical director at Melita.
So he was an ex-Socceroos coach. Like he's got a lot
that
of
was
respect.
where it went off. Like when he came in, I think that's when it exploded.
I think so.
I can't remember who was a TD when I was there.
I think was it John Curran and John Reed? I think it was those guys.
Yeah, those guys.
So he came in and sort of, I don't know if it was the first year or the second year, but he put me up a year. So I started playing up a year and that sort of helped me develop quicker, as it would. And you're playing at a different pace,
bigger boys,
you got to sort of, marking bigger strikers and those type of things. And I think I was there for those years, but then just before AIS, Enswiss actually asked me to come back. And at this time, I was playing 20s at Parramatta.
How old were you?
And I would have been just turned 17 maybe. And it was better for me, I thought, to stay at Parramatta playing against 20-year-olds.
At the time, Enswiss weren't playing either.
No,
it was just training.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So for me, it was no-brainer to stay at Parramatta and play 20s, which I did. And then I went and trained with Enswiss for a few months or whatever after the season finished. So. But I think the coaches changed around that time. Okay. But and then that year I made the New South Wales team.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it was because of me, but that was the first year that we won it. So
just claim it, bro. Just claim it. Sorry, that was the first year
of the Blues
that they won it, right?
yeah.
Because they didn't win before you, so don't take the losses, just take the win.
That's right, actually. Yeah. I was involved in that. So.
Don't put those losses on me, bro. I love that.
So that was the first year we won it. And at that tournament, that's Ange was actually the young Socceroos coach at the time. And he sort of picked a team from that sort of nationals to play a Joey's sort of, Australian team.
Yeah.
And that ended up being his last tournament as an Australian coach.
Yeah, right.
Before he had a bit of a fallout with this guy on the commentator on SBS.
Okay.
And it's quite famous now, but because of what Ange's gone on to do. But at the time, obviously, he was under a lot of scrutiny and stuff. And but we actually won that tournament with him in Japan, and it was great. It was a great experience, to play for Australia.
That was the Asian Cup, right? The Asia Cup, the under-19s.
It was just a tournament, I think, from memory. Okay. It was just it was nothing really. There was no qualifiers or anything like that. Okay. But it was the first time.
It was Australia, right?
It was Australia.
Not the Joeys.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was like the first tournament towards the World Cup.
Yeah. The under-19s.
Under 20 World Cup coming up in Egypt in 2000. 2009, I think it was.
Okay.
So yeah, I like to sort of get picked from that into the AIS was great, you know, and then obviously moving to Canberra was the next step, and I was.
So how old were you when you moved down there? You were 18.
I would have been I would have been 17.
Okay.
Yeah. So actually, I might have been 16 when I was at Parramatta 20s.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. You're right. Yeah. You're right. So yeah, went to AIS, just turned 17. You know, sort of, you know, never moved out of home, I guess you could say. And
how was that, man? How was that? Because that would have been like boarding, right? With the whole.
Well, it was. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
You're living on campus, you know, and it's a good place to live, right? It's, you know, it was
surrounded by high performing athletes.
Yeah. It's quite unique in terms of anywhere else.
Yeah.
I haven't really heard about it anywhere else really, and obviously in Australia there's only one. So,
of course.
To be involved in that was cool, you know, to be picked and to get a scholarship to live in the old resis and you know, with the boys, about 20 other boys, 24 other boys, all trying to become a professional footballer. Yeah. Where you've got everything you need to sort of, you know, do that. You know, you had trainings in the afternoon with the team, but you know, if you wanted to train in the morning, if you had the morning off, you could do that, and you could do extra sessions with with a bunch of boys, or you could go to the gym, you could get your massages and, you know, your dietitians. You could go see if you had problems with the, you know, diet and stuff. And for me, that was cool because it sort of put you in the mind frame of this can be my life, you know, if I work hard and you know, become a professional, you know. So can
I ask you, other than yourself from that set of 25 boys, 25?
Yeah, there's around that.
24
Yeah, there's
something
around
like that.
Yeah.
How many of those, like any big names in there, any of those go on to do what you did in the sort of time frame as well?
Yeah, there was. You know, Sebastian Ryle, Taj Minicon, like these guys all went on to play A-League. You know? James Holland, Andrew Redmayne, Luke DeVere, Saka Sunak. There was quite a few boys that went on to play A-League, you know, and some even overseas, you know, so and Socceroos as well. So,
good bunch of boys to be around, all trying to level up at the time.
Yeah, all leveling up. Some people finished school, some people were at school. I was at school still.
Really?
Because I left Westwoods in year 11, right? Yeah, right. So I did year 12 in Canberra.
No way. Because dude, I left. I was like, I didn't even do a month in year 11 because travel was killing me because I was still doing the train up 2.5 hours each way every day.
Yeah, I got a bad memory, but
man, that was it. And I was because you probably left not long after that.
Yeah,
like that's
right. I left after year 11.
Yeah, and that was it. Yeah, I pulled the pin at the start of it.
Yeah, right.
It was I couldn't do it, man, because you know the amount of workload that came in with it at the same time.
Yeah,
and I was trying to do it. I was just like,
no, it was hard for you to get to school. I remember, like it
was a distance, bro. It was decent.
Catching trains, buses, and, you know, everything.
It was all on. I need to move in with Matty Jurman.
Take 2 minutes to get across the road, and you're still traveling an hour and a half later.
I should have been sleeping at the front door so the burglar couldn't kick the door in.
It's one way to get in.
Mate.
But yeah, what was
sorry, bro.
We zoned off a bit, but So I think, like, you know, I was doing year 12 down there. I went to a college called Lake Ginodera, and it was quite different to Westwoods. Like, obviously, it had not been a sports school, and you know, going there in mufti sort of clothes every day, and you know, I remember starting school, but I had a fifth metatarsal injury, so that was my worst injury that I had up to that stage, from no contact as well. First week AIS, get there, and you know, I'm just running after a ball and I just feel this massive pain in my foot. So
fifth metatarsal is the little one?
The one on the outside. Okay. So just completely fractured that.
Hectic.
Yeah,
a week in?
A week in, yeah.
Jesus.
So I'm going to school and AOS, you know, I'm starting AOS and on crutches with a moon boot.
No way.
You know, hey guys, I'm the guy with the moon boot, so that was me.
Just call me Mooney. Moon boot.
Yeah, and you know, I had some guys from, you know, the Balkans. They call me Chisma. That was what you call a moon boot in Croatian and or whatever.
Yeah, is that right?
So you know, it was all these nicknames that come along with it. But that was the start of my AIS, which was hard, you know, because we had a tournament. The next tournament after that Japan tournament that I told you about with the Australian team was a youth Olympics in Sydney as well. So it would have been, you know, a great experience as well. And you know, a week or two before that happened, I got injured, so I missed that. But I had to get surgery, and you know, living away from home was quite hard at that time. You know,
of course.
But you got everything you need there. But it's quite hard to sort of get your own food when you're on crutches, you know. So one of the boys who I'm still great mates with today, he lives in Brisbane, and we actually helped each other. His name's Stefan, and he's he had a bit of a football career. Ended up in Spain and Croatia at a young age.
Yeah.
But then he came back and sort of went a different way. He's a school teacher now, and he's still a football coach. He does his own academy, but we became really close at that time. We had a bit of bad luck. He had some injuries as well around that time. So we both went to Youth Olympics on crutches.
No way.
Yeah.
I think when you're training that much volume, like, dude, I remember when we were at Westfields, we trained 4 times a week.
Yeah,
we'd all hit the
week.
gym.
Yep.
And then we'd be training with, like, we himself went at Melita
club
or Olympic or wherever. You know, we're all at different clubs. Dude, and then you're playing on the weekend, and then everyone's telling you to get extra sessions in. You're training like 10 times a week and then playing at the highest level.
100%.
Literally, man, the New South Wales Premier League is the highest level in Australia for youthies, right?
100%.
Especially if you're playing up that year as well, and that volume of training, even before AIS. Like, it's no wonder, man, we all used to cop these little injuries all the time during the season. Like, you just literally just nonstop. It's crazy. Yeah. And the recovery of today, which is so, it's like there's so much information out there about recovery. Dude, 20 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, when we were like teenagers starting this, it was none of that was there. And imagine if we had ice baths and saunas and, man, can you imagine that? You know what I mean? Like, it
would have been completely different.
Oh, man.
But even in saying that as well, like, I think when I got to the AOS, the training loads that we were doing, like, you know, before at Westwoods and club, they actually helped me.
Prepared you for it.
Yeah, because there was boys breaking down, like, you know, left, right and center. I know I had a bone injury, which was a bit different, but boys were breaking down with, osteitis pubis and, you know, all these type of overload injuries where, like, you know, they just couldn't cope with the loads, you know. So that actually helped me prepare for that, and sort of in a way. First week I was injured, but
but again, bone.
Yeah, it was a bit different.
You can't train your bone. Yeah,
exactly.
For a bone, it's a small bone in your foot. Like, you can't help breaking that.
But that actually is an overuse injury for me as well, because I was putting so much stress on, and I run on the outside of my feet, and I didn't find this out until later, because that's the way my body sort of worked. And so I was putting so much pressure on the outside of my feet. A couple of years later, I ended up at Sydney FC, and I had the left side. So I had the same injury, but I did the left one. So, and then I went to a podiatrist, and he's like, you know what, you need some orthotics. So that's when
it corrected it.
It actually helped me a lot. Yeah. So.
And I think it's crazy because, like, these days there's so much about, like, sports science and everything that goes into it, man. It's like, I look at my hip surgery I had at 19. It was overuse, man. But it was I had this imbalance that no one picked up because you're just playing as an engine. You're just playing all day.
You think, it's normal to have a bit of pain or whatever. And then,
you play through pain, man. And then I realized, you have all this shit happen. You need surgery on it. And man, it's just like I think it's so different now of people coming through, and like it should be, you know what I mean? Like, technology's gotten so much better, recovery, all this sort of stuff's gotten so much better. Even like assessing an athlete and how they're performing. It's like, you, man, like this overuse injury of this way that you were running. Dude, if you're in the AIS these days, or even probably at the most elite levels of, you know, like your Malinas of today and stuff, surely they're assessing everyone from that perspective as well. Especially AIS, man, like they would be, you know what I mean? Like optimizing massively. So
yeah, for sure. But then
if not, maybe there's a niche that you and I should get into business for.
I've got something, yeah?
Let's go.
Cut this out.
Yeah, guys, we're done.
But in terms of the AIS, there is no football program anymore. So
is that right?
Yeah. So that's why a lot of people are saying, you know, that football in Australia is missing that sort of pathway for kids to go, because so many good players come out of there, you know, even before I was there, you know, and
wow.
So now it's a bit different now. Every club's got, like, A-League club's got an academy.
Yep.
So it's a bit of a different pathway now. So
I think, in all honesty, man, I think something like that would have been better for us, like in our generation.
Yeah, more opportunities. Yeah,
it was none of that sort of thing for us as well. I think that's a good thing, but I agree with you, man. The AIS is it's like that handpicked, especially grooming for the Wollongong and the Socceroos and everything as well, man. So
yeah, that's true.
That's interesting, eh?
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, for sure.
It's interesting how much it has changed, you know, over that time period as well.
Well, I think, just football in Australia has changed that much, you know. Like, obviously the A-League started around that time. They were sort of finishing school or maybe just after.
There wasn't even a 20s team there, man. There wasn't even the youthies. It was just A-League.
Yeah, so I was at Sydney when the Youth League finally started.
Yeah, right.
I played the first year, and there was the league didn't start that, like, it wasn't many games.
Yeah.
You know, you played maybe, I think it was 10 to 15 games. you travelled a couple of times around Australia for games, and then there was a final, and now they scrapped that youth league, and now the youth team's playing the NPL. So
is that right?
Yeah.
There you go.
So now they're playing NPL 1, NPL 2.
Yep. And then that's a feeder up into the actual A-League teams,
that's right,
but they stay in that state. It kind of makes sense, man, because like really in Australia, the money's not there from a national youth league perspective. We're not like Australian, American football, like college and stuff like that. We're not there yet. So
nowhere near that.
Nah, nowhere near. No, that's crazy. Yeah. So interesting, man. So interesting. Kind of, the pathways as they change and go through and all the rest of it too. But man, can I ask you one thing? Like, as well, like this kind of just was playing in my mind a second ago, getting rejected by like N-Swiss and a couple of different things there. Like you said, you'd never had those rejections before. What did that, man, like even in terms of say your vertical jump and your 20-meter sprints and all the rest of it, how much emphasis did you put on those things that you had effectively been rejected because of?
Yeah.
How much emphasis did you put on improving those after the fact? Yeah,
well, obviously to start with, I was a bit like, in my head, I thought maybe I've done enough to make the N-Swiss team, whatever. Yep. I ended up meeting up with the coach who was, I think his name was Kelly Cross at the time. And obviously just hearing those things, you weren't really sure what he was going to say, or like what were the reasons that you sort of, didn't get picked. And I guess for me, up to that stage, I sort of made almost every team that I sort of went for, maybe by chance or, luck or whatever, but I didn't really have too much rejection at that time. So
I believe in luck, mate. I bring that word in here. It's hard work, right? You're training fucking 8 times a week.
Yeah, you're right.
As a teenager, you're working your ass off for this thing.
Yeah, that's right. And I did do a lot of hard work, and around that time where I sort of didn't make those teams, it was maybe 1 or 2 years in a row that these sort of you cop that rejection, and for me it was sort of like it was in the back of your mind that what, I'm gonna make the next one, I'm not gonna, and the N-Swiss wasn't really in my mind that much because obviously I told you before I was playing 20s at Parramatta, so for me I was at a good level that I was happy with, and maybe some of the N-Swiss boys would have liked to rather be playing every week than not playing games or whatever at the time. So for me it was about making that New South Wales team because I knew that was the last one before I couldn't play New South Wales anymore, and I knew I was good enough. I was just trying to make sure that I was ready to have that opportunity when it came, So, I did a lot of extra training, and, it was probably around that time where, I was training like 8 times a week at Westwoods and Parramatta, and I think that helped me sort of, get selected for that team. And, even to this day, I still speak to that New South Wales coach because, I think we had a good time together as a team and, individually as well. So
that's mad, man. How good. But they put the fire in the belly, those couple of first rejections,
100%,
right?
yeah.
Do they hurt as well when you get those first couple, man? Like they're big, huh? Like it's if you've gone through dominating, which when you're at Westfields, in reality, you're in the best of the best of New South Wales, which is New South Wales Premier League. You're talking 12 kids, 6 from each age group. Across the whole of NPL, which was 12 teams of roughly 15 to 20, 20 kid teams. You know what I mean? Like you're the best of the best to then cop a rejection. It's cool that it like lit the fire in the belly because there's people dummy spit, you know what I mean? And they just, fucking whatever. And it's like, nah, he's full of shit. Nah,
some people finish playing after, stuff like that happens.
Yeah, 100%. I know players that did, man. Like,
really?
Man, not to go too hard into it. Remember Lako?
Yeah,
he was from Bud as well.
Right,
Dude, he had 1 season at N-Swiss, and I think Kelly Cross smashed him. We were at national titles at state, and he did 1 year of that, man. And then he threw in the towel. The spirit wasn't there to sort of keep going with it after copying a bit of criticism around it. And there was a fair. I just remember like as other people that I've seen as well. But I just remember him. Dude, he was playing for Blacktown, went to N-Swiss, like he was national titles, like state titles, national titles with New South Wales.
That's right.
Like man, he was a weapon. He was good. And then like. That 1 point of rejection, it's like, fuck, man, like, you know what I mean?
Well, I think some people maybe weren't ready to cop some of that rejection, the first, L in their life, and I think maybe growing up the way sort of we did, maybe that helped us sort of cope with that, and I don't know, for me it was like, I just love, after that happened, I was sort of like, you sort of know that in your own self and head that you are good enough. And I guess, you just sort of want to prove people wrong, I guess. And, you're coming through at a youth level, obviously, you haven't done anything yet. And, you do have that fire in the belly where you do want to prove people wrong and make teams and be successful. And, around that time, I remember, just thinking about that time and it was like, I still still think about it here and there, like, I didn't make that team when I was, 14, 15. That still hurts, But, I think they helped me move on to sort of, you're not always going to do everything that you want to do, in terms of like going for different teams or trialing for things, where, not long after we can speak about that, I did have some trials overseas, and I think that those moments, built me for those as well.
Yeah. Man, just before we dive into that, there's two things I want to pull out of that. The first thing you said was, first bit around like chalking up that L, right? That loss, the first thing coming in. I'll actually kind of merge these two together because you also said like maybe our upbringings conditioned us for that already. It was almost like every time we had a great game, the old boys would put it as, it was almost like a loss already, you know what I mean? Because the old boys would be like, yeah, you did all right, but like you could have done these things better. So we're almost already conditioned to those sorts of things. So then when you got the rejection, it was like, it's not as if it's the first time you've ever had someone give it to you straight before in terms of what you could have been doing better, man. I reckon you're 100% on point with that. The other piece of it, which I think is literally on point with that too, is, man, in life, I honestly believe the only loss is something you don't learn from. Mm-hmm. So if you learn from something like that, man, you were intelligent enough and humble enough at that age, which is impressive because as a 16-year-old, it's very, very rare. I probably wouldn't have done it back then. You know what I mean? I was pretty fiery back in the day. Man, and it goes two ways. You either get the fire in the belly, you push harder, or you stick your head in the sand and you bury yourself with it, right? Yeah. And that's as a teenager, right? As you get older, you should have more maturity around it. But the biggest way that I look at anything with this, man, is like anything that happens in life that's a loss. Whether that's losing the grand final, losing, getting rejected, not making that team, losing something in business, missing out on an opportunity, not making NSWIS, not making AAS, whatever it is, not making the state team for the nationals or whatever. It is only a loss if you don't take that lesson from it. And sometimes lessons are expensive and sometimes they fucking hurt.
Yep.
But ultimately, as long as you take the lesson from it, man, you can grow. I honestly look at business, like I learn more from my losses and my mistakes and the things that I fucked up than the things that I won from. Because when you win, you almost think you're bulletproof. And I always got to ego check myself on, because I'm very successful in business, right? I always have to ego check myself on, because we have big wins. I'm always analyzing the losses or the little things or like what's going, like I'm looking for the things that we're doing wrong because they're the things you learn from. It's hard to learn from the wins.
Yeah, I agree.
You get me?
Yeah, I agree. And I think sometimes the wins are a bit false in terms of where you're at, Sometimes, you do have those wins, but I think you quickly have to get over them because, everything's coming quickly, and if you don't adjust or, think about what's next, that win you'll be dwelling on, for too long after you've had many losses, So I know it's different in different types of work and that, but as a team and an individual, if you're thinking about last week's win, you're not, you already lost the next game, So I think it's important once that game's finished, just forget about it. If it's a win, loss, sometimes you can dwell on it if it's a loss as well. And, I think just move on as quick as possible.
With analysing it. Analysing it's good.
Yeah.
Both ways, win, loss, draw, whatever.
Don't keep it in the back of your mind.
Yeah. You still got to move on. Take the lessons from it and move on.
That's it,
100%, bro. No, I agree with you completely, man. So then moving on past that point as well. So you've obviously had an extremely successful teenage run, you know what I mean? Like through that era, which for an athlete is super important. Like if it's very rare to Tom Brady, you know what I mean, that isn't a draft pick. That's fucking 300 or whatever the hell he was. It's very, very rare for someone like that to turn into an exceptional player. More often than not, you have to be an exceptional youth to do well as a senior as well. We're kind of moving through the time frame where we transition from the youth into the senior. Man, talk me through that. Talk me through first professional game, like, starting to play pro. How did all that look? How did all that play out as well? I'm super intrigued by this because I don't actually know this piece about you.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this is around a young age of moving away to AOS, obviously. But to be fair, I think this is a big part of my youth to senior sort of football, where not many people would know about. I had a sort of a trial at Werder Bremen in Germany.
No way. Dude, I do remember that.
Yeah.
You went when we were still in, you were in 17, 18.
No, that was Bolton, actually.
Dude, I remember you going to Werder Bremen. Was that, how old were you?
I would have been 17.
I remember that. I think Oddie told me.
But I did go, but I did go to Bolton Wanderers at school still.
I remember Werder
Bremen,
man.
Yeah.
Bremen, remember.
Werder Bremen, I did go to Werder Bremen,
So dropped you. I was like, hey, here we go.
Yeah, wow. That's actually pretty good by you. I rate that.
Thanks, man.
But yeah, no, just before that, I remember going to Bolton with Aaron Moy, right?
Yeah, right.
And for me, that was pretty cool because the scout
100%.
came out to school every year and he sort of picked a couple of players to go. And just on that, I remember that was a bit of a rejection as well because I went to Bolton with Azza and Scott Jamison was already there, signed.
Yep.
In the youth. And
was he? I didn't know that.
Yeah, he went the year earlier,
yeah,
right? And then me and Azza went together and it was a great experience, right? So it was living in like a digs together. And
because Bolton was EPL at that time.
EPL, yeah, that's right. They were doing quite well during Europa League around this time as well. And it was quite cool to go to a Premier League, right? A Premier League club. And,
of course.
I was there for 2 weeks with Azza and, I didn't make it, right? That was also a good lesson for me, but also a good experience for me to sort of see, how not far off I was, They sort of said to me, I need to work on my long balls and stuff like. Obviously, Bolton played a different type of football, where they had a lot of long balls and they fight for things and second balls and that type of football and around that time anyway. And it was cool for me because as I got signed as well, so he ended up going there not long after. I came back, but that was a good lesson for me. And then I went to AOS and stuff. But
so when was Werder Bremen in there?
So Werder Bremen was after AOS the first year, right?
Okay.
We had a young Socceroos tournament in Vietnam, and my agent at the time organised a trial for me in Werder Bremen, and it was for 2 weeks. Just in Germany, and one of my
Bremen, dude, back in the day, they were big, man.
Big club.
They were big back
club,
then.
Yeah, they were like top 4.
I was gonna say
in Germany.
Yeah, I remember, dude. They were big because when someone told me, because someone probably told me Bolton as well, but Bolton and me wouldn't have registered, even though they're EPL. But Bremen at the time were big, man. Because I was like, holy shit.
Well, that's what I thought. Like, must have a good agent here, He's lined up a good trial here. And he lined up another trial for a mate of mine who was also in Vietnam with me. So me and him went to Germany together.
Yeah.
He went to a club called Mönchengladbach, which he ended up signing as well.
Who are you talking about?
His name's Peter Svednowski. He didn't play much long after he sort of come back from that experience a couple of years later. But
because a few boys started breaking into
overseas and stuff
into Germany. Because was it Robbie Cruz?
Robbie Cruz,
Leverkusen?
Lecky, yeah. A couple of boys started going on that pathway, and
I feel like we're more German style players. You know what I mean? Like Aussies,
I agree.
Engines, physical. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like that.
Yeah,
like
we suit their style. 100%. I went there for two weeks.
Yeah.
I thought it did really well, and they said the same thing. The coach said he didn't really speak too much English, but he's like, "Look, I want you to come back." And I was like, "Well, this is better than telling me no."
Yeah, of course.
So he told me to come back. This was around probably, I'd say November sometime, right? Yeah. And so I came back. Had my birthday in December, and then I was training by myself, right? Just working on my fitness, getting ready for it was a preseason. They wanted me to come back in January.
Yeah.
In Spain actually, and it was with the under-23 team.
Yeah.
And I would have been like just turned 18.
Yep.
So I was the youngest in this under-23 team, and went to Spain, and these guys proper like they trained us hard. Like this is quite hard for me because I've gone from training at Westwoods eight times a week, whatever it was, to AIS, but this was like something even
different
more
level.
Yeah, right.
Really?
So we'd be training 3 times a day, and there would be because we're staying in a nice hotel and everything. It was nice. I think it was a 6 o'clock wake up, and you had to be downstairs at like let's just say 6:15 or something.
Right.
For a road run.
Yeah.
In Germany, they love road runs, right?
Yeah, right.
There's one of the coaches just takes off, and you got to like keep up with him, and you could be going for like I can't remember how long it was, but it would have been easily like 40 minutes, I reckon.
Right.
Just running,
just road run.
At a certain pace. You finish that, you come back to the hotel. Might have been 40 to an hour. I can't remember, but you come back, you have breakfast, and then you go upstairs, you relax for a little bit, and then at 10 o'clock. You're going for training on the pitch, You ride your bike up to the training pitch with everyone else, and you're training.
Yeah.
Pre-season training, an hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever it was.
Yeah.
You come back, you have lunch, you're knackered by this stage.
Yeah.
But then you have a bit of a nap, and then 3:30 you wake up, you're training at 4 o'clock again. So
wow. And what was the 4 o'clock session? Technical again on the field?
Well, it varied, you know, like it was different every day. But for me, like I never done like some sort of road run to start the day, you know, that was different for me, you know. AOS was more technical and, you know, sort of working on different things.
Do you reckon the road run brought you unstuck?
Well, yeah, I just wasn't used to doing like long distance runs.
So you were knackered by the time the technical sessions come around.
So like 3 times a day, that was quite intense, you know.
Huge,
like,
man.
Yeah. And if you, like we train once a day now, you know, pre-season was once a day here in Australia. And I feel like the training loads, like you said, have been managed very differently compared to when we were playing to now. So like the kids now, like they say they've got a bit of soreness or whatever. It's like, oh, you're out today. You're not even training. Like before it was like no one asked if you were sore. Like you just got on with it. A bit of
sore. Okay, no worries. Well, if you fall behind, then you're cut.
Yeah. Oh, you sore? Oh, you don't want to train today? All right. You know what? Just
this is the plane ticket.
Yeah, get you back.
Seriously, but
that's how it was. That's how it was. It was cutthroat, you know. And I feel like these days it's very different. But
What do you prefer? What do you think's better?
I think a bit of both. Like. Obviously, you know, being a bit older now, it's better for me.
It's nice to be a bit easier now.
Yeah,
but a bred a harder character back then.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And I think like people are getting opportunities a lot easier now, and that's obviously different now because you know there's a whole generation that went out of the game, you know, in the time where I've started playing to now. But it was a lot harder to get opportunities, you know, in a first team environment. And
100%.
The first team environment wasn't as easy as it is today to get into, you know, like you've got, you know, young boys that come in and you know, being the oldest in the team now, like, you know, I think I'm pretty welcoming to boys that come in and on a day when I'm walking into a first team training session, you know, growing up, it's like, you know, it's quite intimidating, you know, and I think that's very different today where, you know, the older boys are very, very different. They try and help the young boys. And I'm not saying there wasn't some players that didn't try and help back in the day, but yeah, it's just a completely different environment, you know. And I think, back to Germany, I think, you know, that sort of those training sessions were, you know, quite fresh in the memory bank still to this day, you know.
Still hurts.
Still hurting. Just thinking about it, I'm quite hurt. But
bro, it makes me laugh. You would probably remember this because when you, and I don't know the exact timelines, but when you came back from the AIS and you started playing, I think you were playing for Olympic from memory.
Olympic,
and I was at
Socceroo.
Right. And I was in the Socceroo.
Yeah, that's 20s, right.
And I think I would have been 18, maybe 18, 19, something like that.
Yep.
And Socceroo was like, they were the team, right? We won like 5 years.
Yeah, they've done really well. Yeah,
man. And I was trying to break into the first team, and they had a lot of money at that time, so they had a really deep squad. And I just remember so clearly, like just going back talking about the difference between you guys being welcoming compared to back then. Dude, I would train up, and someone in particular. Do you remember Pedj Bojic?
Yeah,
his name just
actually seen him last week.
There we go. Well, I nearly punched on with him. I was like 18 and he was like 28, and he was a huge unit back in the day.
He's a big boy.
And man, he took me out, and I was a rough player back then. Like I played aggressive, and he took me out, and I lost my shit. And like this is like. They did it, but to try and trigger you to get you out. You know what I mean? Like because you
test your mentality as well, and see how strong you were.
But seeing people come through as well, and I had the fire, and I do well. But then, man, you did that, and then you flare up, and then you have a big fucking blow up, and all of a sudden you're back in training with the 20s. You know what I mean?
Because guys like, oh, this guy is he wants to fight and all this stuff. And it's like.
Man, and it's like, it's funny, but because like instead of being the welcoming side that you guys would probably be now, like they're testing you, they're trying to break you or whatever, man, I think it's funny because I completely agree with you, but it's a funny thing because my mentality back then. Sorry, I'm not trying to take this spotlight at all, but
it's anyway.
That's funny because it's what I think made me really good as a player back then was also my downfall because like I had that fire and the energy, and like I was a boxer, and I was an aggressive player, the rest of it. And then, but I was national title. So what do you remember what you did make? I was in those teams.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Dude, I got some dude took my knee out from Canberra, and I chased him. the whole field, and he ran off, and I chased him into the car. I wanted to kill this guy because I saw red because he tried to do my ACL.
Rumor has it you're still running.
You fucking should be. I'd kill that guy if ever. But man, it's like, You said at the very start of this conversation, I didn't want to actually get into this thing, but I feel like it just kept popping its head up to lead into this thing. And man, you said at the very start, it's funny when like an event or like a coach or something changes the whole direction of what you do. that Canberra game was the final game in that tournament. And I think I was under 15s. This was for the under 17s Joey's team 2 years later that Azza was in. And a few of the other boys.
That's right, yeah.
And that game completely derailed my career as a teenager because they saw that I was a fucking clicker on the field when something silly like that happened.
Yeah.
If I'd gone on the ground and rolled around like everyone thinks a soccer player does, I'd probably be, who knows where I could have gone. Who knows where I would have gone.
But you see that as the part in your youth that you sort of,
my dad
would you change it or?
It's who I am. I can't change it.
Yeah.
It's who I am. It's who I still am today.
Don't have the regrets. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And where I am today, man, there's not too many athletes that ever would have gotten to where I've even got from a business perspective. And I look at it, man, and like my old boy was sitting behind our coach who was actually a Liverpool scout. I can't remember his name. Brian
Dean?
No, Brian something. I can't remember his name. This is nearly 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And he was sitting behind the head scout of the boys for the Joeys. And my coach, Brian Laughlin, something. I'm thinking Clough, but it's not Clough because I was actually a coach back in the day. But he, my old boy heard him say, he was talking about one other player on my team and he goes, what do you think about Sammy? And he goes, mate, we loved him. But what he did today, we can't have that in the team.
Oh, wow.
And it was crazy because then we went on to the Joeys and we got beaten by fucking like Lau and Thailand and shit. They needed someone that was psycho in the team. You know what I mean? They needed that hothead.
To liven the team up.
Or headed. They needed the aggression, you know. And
honestly, I don't see it as a bad thing because I was also like that, you know.
But it cost me at that time in my career. And when you say, you know, and you think about it all the time and the trains from that time. And again, I don't mean to derail your conversation to go into mine, but I look at it and I'm like, you said it at the very start and it popped into my head and I'm like, I don't want to bring it up because I don't want to make it about me, but it's so funny, man, that like that one decision, and if anything, man, especially if there's some youthies coming through, or there's some kids trying to make it or whatever, just remember that every decision that you make defines you. And like I look back and I don't regret it because of where I've gotten myself to now. And I'm an extremely happy person with what I've done. If there's one thing I look back in my life that I know cost me something that I put a lot of time into, there's that one decision, man. But in the same vein, I wouldn't have been as good a player if I didn't have that aggression in me. Because I was the engine room. Like you talk about the 20 meter sprints, the vertical jump. Dude, I was a sub 3 second 20 meter sprinter. I was, bloody high. I was an engine, you know what I mean?
Your physical side was very good.
Yeah, that was I was athleticism, right? And the passion, the energy and all the rest of it. And that was my downfall at the same time was the other piece of it. So it's so funny, like looking back now, it's so funny, it fucking hurts like still to this day, but it's interesting looking back now and like looking at these things and almost like, it's funny where like you almost look at it as go, would it almost have been better if I had been rejected from making a team because then you got to like fight and scrap to get back in there than have that one bloody, I mean, it's just like, it is what it is.
I mean, you wouldn't obviously know that certain thing is going to lead to that pathway, you know?
Exactly.
But,
that was the only time I ever saw red, and it just happened to be in the final game of the national titles. And proper saw red. I've seen red. That was like I don't even remember doing it. You know, like.
Well, I mean, it sounded like a bad tackle, right?
It was a bad tackle, right? I forgot to fucking do my ACL. You know what I mean?
So there's some merit in that reaction there, but I think.
Call Ange. Let's go back 20 years. Call Ange. Let's get me the team.
I think it's rewinded up, but because I think growing up with you as well, and I think that aggression did help you. Recover balls and score some great goals from out of the box. And I remember watching you and I remember the aggression about you was I saw it as a good thing when you were on my team, right?
Yeah,
and,
of course.
Probably everyone else did that were on your team as well, borrowing the red cards if you ever got any.
There's a couple in the mix. Part of the trade-off, right?
Yeah, that's the next part of the pathway. But I understand what you're saying, and it's I guess you can't say it's disappointing because that's also who you are, but it's funny that you look back on that moment and
it's so interesting to reflect on, like looking back at the things, these formulative little pieces, and this is where I would even challenge people, like even things like that, like don't let it define you, because I look at myself and like I did let it define me because I didn't make that team, so I let it like sway me off the path, and I still did well. Like it was years later that I had the incident with Pedge, man, and I was like 18, training with the best. I was training up into the first with the best team in New South Wales Premier League at the time. So like I had the opportunities, but like I constantly went back to that as my like excuse. Like if I'd been there, maybe I'd be here or there or wherever. And it's like these things are going to happen. You're going to make decisions. We're all human. We're all going to make these little mistakes. But it's how do you then move past it or get to this next level or whatever? It's like you look at Matty, like did make a couple of teams, didn't make N-Swiss twice, but then made AIS. You know what I mean? It's like there's always pathways. There's always different things. You never know what's there and what the opportunities are. You just got to keep pushing, man. You keep banging down the doors until the right one opens and that pathway's there. So
yeah, I agree. I think, every day you have so many choices that you can make. As a young male footballer growing up, it's hard to, should I go out this weekend? I got a game the next day. Should I go to this party? Or, there's so many things, girls, all those things that growing up, you sort of, you have to make choices about, and I think it's not easy, especially these days when there's so many things that you have dangled in front of you, like to sort of make choices on, but I think if you got your mind right and you know what you want, what the end goal is, I think making those choices every day, they actually have a big difference on the end goal and the performance that you can put on. So you're always making sacrifices from a young age without realizing, and I think, you would know as well, you can't do everything that you want to do. Sometimes you got to say no, but
and things aren't always going to turn out exactly how you want them.
Exactly, yeah. Even if you do everything right. So
yeah, that's it,
so
man.
It's hard, yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
No, I love it, man. I love it. Mate, jumping back into the career. So we're probably at this point, I think we're roughly 20, going into the 20s. First professional debut, that's where we're about to jump into. And then I don't know, we went on the big tangent.
True. Let's go back.
Let's rewind.
Well,
take me back.
Well, I actually made my debut while I was at AOS, right? But it was just a one-off game.
Yeah.
Sydney FC needed players.
Yeah.
The Socceroos players, they had people away, they had people injured, they had people suspended. And I sort of, I don't know how, but
you went to the Socceroos versus Sydney FC?
No. There was boys from Sydney FC that went into the Socceroos.
Oh, so they're away.
Yeah, so there was heaps of boys that are out, and Sydney, A-League squads aren't really that big to start with, So the coach at the time was Branko Kalina actually, and he brought me up from Canberra. I had a few sessions, and then I was on the plane to go to Perth.
No way.
Yeah, and I was happened very quickly, but I just remember that was my first experience of being in a professional team.
Yeah.
Made my debut over there.
How did that feel, dude? That's a week turnaround of no pro contract to then boom, couple sessions, then I'm on a plane to Perth. How did that feel?
It was a bit weird.
How old were you?
I would have been 17.
Holy shit.
Yeah, so I made my debut at 17. Obviously, it was a big step up going from AOS because we were playing in the NPL sort of thing. It was called VPL at the time in Melbourne. So we travelled to Melbourne every week for AOS. But going from that to A-League was quite a big jump. And I think I ended up going on as a left back or left wing back or something like that. And
start or off the bench?
No, off the bench.
Okay.
But obviously that was my debut.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. So I think it ended up being a 0-0 draw from memory, but
well, as a fullback, you'll take that as a win.
100%. Yeah,
you're in the defense line. You can see, there's a pattern emerging, you guys.
But I made my debut at 17.
That's awesome.
Went back to AOS. There was a few boys around that time that sort of were actually getting contracts at A-League clubs. From there, that's when I went to Germany after AOS finished.
Yep.
So some boys stayed on for that second year. I sort of went for these trials overseas because I thought,
excuse me,
that if I can get a team overseas, that'll be, the next step in my sort of career, And so I went back to Germany. I was with the team for 2 weeks in Spain.
Yep.
And that's when the coach asked me to come back to Germany again. So I've only taken a bag, right? A bag for 10 days, soccer bag. And, I'm thinking, just trials for 10 days and I'm going to go home. You know? So they've asked me to come back to Germany, back to Bremen again. And, obviously I said yes. And at this time I was training with the 23s in the morning at 10 o'clock, I think it was. And then I'd go back to this hotel where they put me in. I have a restaurant where I can go and I can eat for free or whatever, So that was pretty cool. And then
Do many of the Germans speak English? Like the 23s?
Yeah, quite a lot. Yeah. It's it wasn't hard to sort of get around if I did.
You said the coach didn't. That's what I was
the coach didn't.
The boys did, which is good.
Yeah. And then I trained with the 19s at night, and I did that for about a month, right? And
really?
Yeah, I was there for a long time. I'm thinking,
is this after Spain?
Yeah, just after Spain.
After Spain?
Yeah.
Shit. I
Yeah.
thought you were saying you got cut after Spain.
Nah. So I was there for about a month and a half at Werder Bremen. And I'm thinking,
Holy shit.
I've got to get signed here. Like, these guys must rate me, you know? Like, I must be doing all right. So,
Yeah.
and I was playing some friendly games and stuff as well. And, you know, I was doing all right. And, yeah, I don't know. After that month and a half, the coach came and spoke to me again, and after a game, and I thought I'd done quite well in that game as well. And he's come and spoke to me. He's like, "Look, everything is very good, but if you sign, you will be like 13th, 14th player." Like, and I was like, "Oh, yeah. What do you mean?" Like, he's like, "I know my English is not good, you know, but." He's basically saying if I signed, I would be on the bench.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, that's fine. Like, I was 18. I was the youngest guy on the team, you know. I'm thinking that's completely fine for me, you know. But he said to me, look, try and get a lower team, because obviously Bremen was quite big, and try and get to a lower team. We'll keep an eye on you.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay. I was a bit deflated, to be honest. Like, I thought he's going to tell me you're going to sign. And I was like, you know, obviously my parents will help me, you know, sort of get by in that while I was overseas, and that didn't work out. So I went to a few different German clubs around just all over Germany, to be honest. My agent was organising trials, and I was taking this bag of 10 days just around.
So how long were you there for? So you did 6 weeks at Bremen, and then how much longer were you? Who else did you trial with?
Trialed with Hansa Rostock, I think it was. Okay. One team. Went to Berlin. Yeah. I was training with St. Pauli. Okay. Which is now they're in the Bundesliga 1 with a couple of Aussies there as well. Yeah. And there's another team. What's the team called? Completely forgot. But I wasn't there for long. I was there for a couple of days, right? And this team.
And what's it just? Oh, sorry.
No, I had an English guy as the head scout. Yeah. And it's actually quite interesting, because this guy and his family, after this 2-day trial, I was there for 2 days and, you know, said no. I was like, oh, fair enough. I didn't know where I was going next. Yeah. And this was around Easter time at this time. So I'd been overseas since January 1 or something like that. It was around that time. And I was still overseas, and
100 days in.
Yeah. And this guy was a top guy, and you know, he sort of said to me, "You can stay at my house while you're sort of trying to organise where you're going next," right? And I ended up being there for a few weeks, and I had Easter with him and his family. He had a really quite a young daughter at the time, who, you know, sort of you know, we bonded a little bit, and you know, we spent Easter together, and, you know, to this day, I still speak to this family. And,
no way.
They came and visited me. Actually, I think I was in Hungary. Yeah. We had a game there prior to the World Cup. Yeah. And they came and visited me, and I gave them a jersey and stuff.
No way.
Yeah, even though he rejected me, I was like, you know, I let that slide. You let me say yes for a few weeks.
Oh, that's fun.
And I remember, like, I got some clothes from Bremen after the trial, you know, and they gave it to me, and I was wearing that just running around the area where they lived. Yeah. And I was trying not to get lost, because it was quite everything looked the same, and it was snowing as well around this time. And
no way.
Yeah, I mean, I got to keep fit, you know, because otherwise, you know,
if an opportunity comes up, you want to be able to play.
But I wasn't able to train any clubs at the time, so I was just going for road runs and, you know, the German style, the road runs, and they come in handy. So I was just doing that, and then, you know, they were looking after me a bit, and you know, from there I got a trial. I think from there I think there was no more clubs in Germany. Okay. I think I went to Scotland. I think, and I was at Motherwell. I went to Motherwell. Yeah, I was there for about a month as well, and similar sort of thing. But they said, look, come back, because the season was ending soon. Okay. So I come back in pre-season. So I was a bit like unsure about that situation, because my agents couldn't get in touch with the coach, and it was just a bit hard to sort of organise, you know. Went from there to England. Yeah. Went to Sunderland. Okay. And that was quite a cool experience as well.
Well, they would have been top flight back then as well.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, Roy Keane was the coach.
So
I was a bit intimidated going up to him saying hello, but and they had Jordan Henderson, who ended up, you know, being the Liverpool captain.
Yeah, for sure. But I forgot he started at Sunderland.
Yeah, so he was training with me in the under-19s. And
no way.
Yeah, that was pretty cool, you know. Also had Dwight York come and he was doing his coaching badges at the time.
Yeah.
He came and did a session with under 19s. But I also met him when I was playing for Sydney FC when I made my debut and stuff. So that was quite cool to see him again.
What was Keen like as a coach? Or did you not have that much to do with him?
Didn't really have that much. Senior, just said hello to him once and, probably just shook my hand like that. But yeah, no, it was a good experience. Watched the game at the Sunderland Stadium, which is, a beautiful stadium.
Yep.
And then from there, I think I went to Denmark for a week, tried with a team called FC Nordsjælland, I think it was called. Didn't make it there. At this stage, it was about 4 months, right?
Yeah.
And I was like completely mentally cooked.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Just I had no more trials in my.
And bro, you've come from 6 weeks straight at Bremen, thinking that it's coming.
Yeah,
it
was tough.
And then it's just like boom, rejection. Man, that must have been hard.
Yeah, it was tough. And I remember at the time, my dad was sort of funding my trip.
Yep.
Around all these different places in Europe, and in my head, I was like, you know what, I'm not coming back unless I sign a contract until I sign a contract. But it just didn't happen. And I think sometimes you can have the right mentality, but maybe you don't have the right luck at the time. And I tried quite well at some of these clubs, and they just didn't see something that was worth giving me a contract for. And I guess there's so many players in Europe, so it's hard to get that contract that you want. And as an Aussie, it's even harder because they just think like, we don't know how to play football here. It's like, there's this, they're rugby players that play over there. They're known for their rugby and cricket. And
you got heaps good at like the big tackles, the big spear tackle.
Yeah.
So when someone rejected you spear tackle them, I'm a fucking rugby player, mate.
That's where I went wrong.
Yeah, 100%. Then they might have signed you. Or the next one would have signed you because they didn't want to get tackled.
Yeah, true. I should have done it in Denmark.
We should have joined forces back in the day.
That would have been great, huh? Different mentality.
Oh, mate.
Hey, you signing me or?
Just getting ready. Oh, mate, that's classic.
So from there, I came back and that's when I started playing for Sydney Olympic.
Okay.
So it was halfway through the season. Started playing, first grade.
That must have been when I started hearing about it all, because I remember when you came back and I was like, oh, Matty. And I think I was watching because I would have been, because you would have been 18, 19.
Just turned 18.
Yeah, because I would have been 17 in the youthies, and then like for 20s and that, and you would have been playing. And I think I must have been sitting with Audie or something like that. Yeah. And he must have recounted where you had been. Yeah. Because I know you boys were still pretty close back then. And he was telling me about,
everywhere.
I remember Bremen, man. I remember that's when I heard all that.
Yeah, I don't think many people would know about all other clubs, because like I literally just go on there, like, didn't really have much contact with people back here, and Facebook just started around that time, So,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, didn't really have too many people on the socials, but yeah.
Man, I think even the run there, like, how long and how many clubs you had to crack at there too, man. It's like, it's cool, you went there, had a good crack at it. Because that's the thing, you never look back now and go, oh, what if, you had a crack at it, man, and then you had success in other points and it kind of went all across the board as well. So, man, moving forward from there, you've signed at Olympic, you're obviously playing there. Man. And then walk me through when, because Sydney FC would have been the first A-League team, yeah? Yeah,
so from there I ended up going to Sydney. I was in the youth team. This was the first year the youth team started. And the AIS coach was actually the Sydney FC youth team coach.
No way.
Yeah, so his name was Steve O'Connor, and I just remember calling him and saying like, oh, I'm really keen to come to the Sydney team. And he's like, yeah, you're in the mix. And I was like, oh, I've known you for a year now. Like, you know me by now, And anyway, I ended up getting a position in the team. And then not long after that, I was training with the first team almost every day. And
you're in the mix.
Yeah, I was just like, okay, thanks.
Bro, I remember your name was like fire, like wildfire in the Premier League. Yeah, when you were
in the Premier League,
when you came back over. 100% at Olympic. Like, you're in the mix. Come on, man. You're talking about the youth team for that. You're picking the best out of it. You're the 20. You're going to lead the team. You're in the mix. Come on, bro.
Well, it was a good team, to be fair, but like, I was
still. There's a reason why within a week you were training with the first team.
Yeah, it stressed me out a little bit. When hearing those words, I was like, oh,
he's playing hard to get. Steve O'Connor.
Yeah. So. And then John Cosmina was the coach of the first team, and I was training with these guys all pretty much full time, and helped me a lot as well, sort of progress. Eventually, about 5 or 6 of us from that youth team got first team contracts. Yep. And I was one of them. I signed 2 years.
Yeah, perfect.
Actually, after that season, that's when Cosmina got sacked. And,
right.
But I'd already signed and maybe played a handful of games, maybe 5-6 games that year, and. from there, a new coach came in from Czech Republic.
Who was that?
His name was Vidislav Lavička.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds exotic.
And well,
he sounds hot if he was a chick.
Yeah, just trying. No, he was a good guy.
Yeah. And so he liked you. He gave you a good run.
Yeah. So that year is when I did my left foot. I did the 5th metatarsal probably halfway through the season or something like that. Oh, actually, no, it might have been near the end. Because I did play some games. I was off the bench, that type of thing. And that year is the year that we won it.
Okay.
So we won the grand final. I remember
beautiful.
being in Melbourne on crutches.
Yeah.
And, then trying to, go to all the party events after that on crutches as well. So, got surgery, won the A-League that year.
Yep.
And, I used to think like, oh, this is, pretty cool to be in a team that, wins the A-League.
Yeah,
and,
100%.
Maybe it's going to be like this every year, but now looking back now, it's not that easy to win, things.
Yeah,
and, from there, I sort of, the next year I sort of didn't really get too many opportunities, kept rotating the same sort of defenders at Sydney. And then probably like 7 games left of the season, that's when they couldn't really make the finals. The next year after they won it, we started really bad. And I just remember sort of waiting for an opportunity all year, and then I finally got one, and we went on a bit of a run, but we just missed out still, right?
Okay.
But I think we almost won every game, and they offered me a 2-month contract, and I was like, 2 months?
2 months?
Yeah, it was just for the ACL, so the Champions League games. We were in Champions League that year, and ended up playing every Champions League game, and from there, Ange called me to go to Brisbane.
Yeah, right.
So I went to Brisbane.
There you go. Did you play the Champions League? Did you sign the 2 months?
Yeah, I signed the 2 months.
Okay,
I was like, happy days. I'll play all those games, get some experience in Asia.
Yeah, 100%.
And then, actually had a few people from Asia try and, contact me to go there. And I didn't think I was ready then,
Yeah, fair.
I signed at Brisbane, went to Brisbane with Ange.
Yep.
And that year we won it again.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so under Ange we won it.
Did you play a lot more then?
I played a lot more then.
Yeah. That was kind of like breakout year for you.
Yeah, so but Brisbane won that year that before as well.
Yeah,
so,
right.
We ended up, they ended up doing the double.
Sweet.
2 years in a row. And
That's good,
I came for the second year. So,
But dude, to be signed into it and then to be a formulated part of that as well,
Yeah.
obviously you've seen the talent. I mean, he's known you from younger as well.
younger as well, yeah.
But then seeing the talent, man, brought you in, still giving you the game time. Because so often, like, to get signed for a team, this is one that the premiership's big.
It's not
man.
easy,
That's big. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so
They're looking to pick the cream, who they think's going to add to the team.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I think when Ange called me, I was like, oh, this is a no-brainer,
Of course. Yeah.
And now you look on, what he's done. I think, it was a good move for me at the time. And looking back now, it was a good move. And
100%.
Things changed quickly. After that year, we won everything. I think we had a 36 unbeaten run, which is, I think, still a record till today.
Yeah, it's huge.
I think that after that year, he left. So Ange left, and things changed very quickly. I had a coach, probably the worst coach in my career, and he came in and almost destroyed me. I'm not even going to mention his name because I just don't want to give him any limelight. But he was he came in and sort of like was just stuffed me around and. Even halfway through the season, Sydney tried to get me back. They said, "Oh, he's like, no, you're not going anywhere. You're a contracted player." Blah blah.
Wow.
I wasn't really playing.
Yeah.
Anyway, from there I went back to Sydney. So
yeah, sweet.
And then from there I stayed there for another 3 or 4 years
At Sydney.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember you. I mean, Sydney was where you were known. Like, was it you? Who did you build the part? You were with someone for ages. It wasn't.
There was a few boys. Alex Wilkinson.
Timpano for a bit. Was he outside of you?
Nah, no, not Timpano.
Okay.
Wilkinson, Sebastian Ryle.
Okay. All right, so Wilkinson from Westfields, and then
there's a French boy as well that was playing with me once.
Right. And then Ryle, you knew from the AOS as well.
Yeah, AOS.
Yeah, interesting.
He was in the state teams and stuff.
Sweet.
Yeah, so
interesting, man.
Put some good combinations, and I really enjoyed that time back at Sydney, to be honest, because I was playing a lot more, and we didn't have so much success at the start of that time when I was playing, but near the end we had a really good team, and that was the time where I'm like, I need to I did well, and I was feeling like I was ready for the next move.
Yep.
And that's when I moved overseas to Korea.
Sweet.
Because that's when I knew if I stayed, I'd win another championship.
Yep.
But also, I feel like if I don't leave now, I might not even go overseas again. You know? So
100%.
went to Korea.
Yep. Was that because you wanted to go play in the K League? So the K League and the J League are pretty big, obviously, right?
Yeah.
Was it a money move? Was it wanting just to go and have a crack at Asia? Like, just intrigued. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
From that perspective as well.
Yeah, I think for me, it was a big club.
Yep.
So that was one thing that ticked the box. Second thing was to play overseas. So that was one of my goals that I wanted to achieve that year.
Yep.
Obviously the money's better than A League.
Yeah, of course.
So that was a bonus, but
you got some big recognition in your time in the K League, yeah. Like it kind of went around a bit, man. Like you were playing bloody well over there.
Yeah, I think I was quite successful. At the start it was hard. The Koreans were even like unsure, like is he going to be successful or not? And they even said that to me. When I was leaving, they said, "Look, I remember at the start, there was
uncertain.
Yeah, like some games, we weren't sure, and we didn't win a game for the first 6-7 games, right? And that puts pressure on a foreigner straight away. We brought you in, we expect results, even though it's a team game. Like we expect you to help us, get results. And to be fair, like it was our first win of the season. I scored 2 goals and we won 2-1.
No way.
Never
From
happened.
centre
back. two corners.
No way.
It's probably it hasn't happened since, but I think that was just the right timing,
Yeah,
and so that
it
was
turned around since then. After that,
yeah. So from that, they really had a lot of confidence in me, and the season that we had that year was I think we came 3rd in the K League.
Yeah, wow.
We made the semis or the quarterfinals in the Champions League, and we almost won the FA Cup. So I think we had a really great season that year. And
why'd you only stay there 1 year?
I was there a year and a half.
Okay,
but that year was when I made the Socceroos. So everything was great that year. Everything. I wouldn't say went to plan, but in my head, it was sort of one of the reasons that I moved to Korea as well, to sort of get myself into that Socceroos, talk or whatever, and the rest was up for me. If I'm playing well, then eventually I might get picked.
Yep.
So
that was your way of getting brought into the conversation around the Australian squad.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And eventually I got selected to go in the Socceroos, and in hindsight, it was lucky that the Socceroos didn't make the team the World Cup directly. So they came, I think, 2nd or 3rd in the group, and they had to go the long way, right? So they gave me more games.
Yeah, I remember that because everyone was pulling their hair out, going, "Holy shit, how does Australia not qualify?"
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Oh, so that's where that was your pathway. Those games.
Those games were my first games.
That was awesome.
So he brought me into the camp for the first time, and straight away put me into the lineup.
Wow.
And, that was quite big, but I also felt like I was ready.
Yeah.
So I just remember one of the chats that Ange had with me, and it was like, look, you can come in and get selected for these friendly games, and that's still good. There's nothing against that. But if you get selected and you play these games that actually mean something, and you do well, then you show that you belong here. And I just remember like getting goosebumps when he said that to me, and I just remember just those little chats that he had that have a big influence on me and my career. And
for sure.
Yeah, from there we obviously qualified, and
that's some pretty big moments with Ange.
Yeah, he's been there at different times of my career, So
interesting. Man.
Yeah, I got a lot to sort of look back on my career with him.
Your time with him as well. Yeah, sweet. So talk me through, if you and even just like a snapshot of what it was like playing for Australia as well, man. Like it's every young soccer boy's dreams to play for Australia. Yeah, one of your career highlights, obviously.
It's funny you say that because my mum found a book when I was younger. Yeah. When you're a kid and it's like, what are you going to be when you're old? When you're an adult, or when you're older. And mine was I wrote I want to be a Socceroo. Yeah. So to do that, I remember the first game was very special. It was in Malaysia, but it was quite special for me. And then to play those games, in Australia, they meant a lot, And I think for me it was, like I said to you before, best days of my career, but probably my life. Just to have that feeling of putting the Australia jersey on, playing in the country that you love so much, and to play meaningful games. They really meant a lot. And
dude, I'm getting goosebumps. Yeah. I'm getting goosebumps right now listening to this. This is hectic, man.
Yeah, it was so special, man, to be honest. That jersey means a lot to me. And the cap when I got presented to it. It just does mean a lot. All that hard work and setbacks and extra training sessions and traveling, just all those things sort of come back to you in that time. In that one moment where you sort of achieve what you wanted to achieve. And I remember just looking back and thinking, what, this is awesome. Like I want to stay in here as long as I can now, which is it's quite hard, to be honest. Like to sort of to stay involved in the Socceroos, it's not easy. You sort of need to be playing at a high level overseas as long as you can. And I think I spent about 2-3 years involved, and that was probably the best times. When you go away the Socceroos, get well looked after. Fly business class. Nice hotels.
The best games that Australia's probably ever had, other than probably like the Timmy Cahill moments, right? Which are obviously the best Australia's ever really done, and best results we've ever had. But they would have to be the qualification games, right? Like the qualification game to make the final. And like that was your highlight, that 90,000 in Australia.
By far.
Bro, that is crazy. I can only imagine. I'm literally getting goosebumps again. You can see my hair standing on end, like thinking about that atmosphere that must have been there. Man, even as a last piece of what you want to talk about here, like how was that, man?
Well, it's funny, like you even meet people now, like, that you didn't know when you were playing for them. And they're like, you have a conversation with them. They're like, oh, I remember going to those games. And I was like, oh, that's mad. Like I was playing in those games, and I guess you don't really think about it because you're living overseas at the time. You don't really see the hype of the papers and whatnot because you're sort of, so focused on
you're in the zone
in Korea and stuff as well. But just like I said, having the family there, playing in front of 90,000 and qualifying, like actually, getting the job done. I remember that game. The last game before we actually qualified, in the first minute or two, I took a big touch and I saw red, right? And I saw the player that I'm marking for this game and the last game over there was about to get the ball, and I just like, no, you're not getting it. And I remember sliding out, and this guy went flying. Right, and this is early in the game, like second minute, and I'm thinking, oh no, like he's made the most of it. I think I'm gonna.
What I should have done in that game back in the day. Go on.
I think I'm getting ready. And the ref come over like sprinting, and he got his yellow out. But I remember
it would have to be a brutal tackle to get sent off in the second minute of a game that important. But you never know, right? You never know.
But then I had to play the rest of the game on that yellow card, But that moment, I remember it was my heart just beating so fast, thinking, please do not get sent off, And it got spoken about afterwards, like that could have been a big moment in the game,
Of course,
But it's luckily I stayed on the pitch. And
it was the yellow.
It ended up being good. Like maybe that tackle sort of intimidated that guy as well because he didn't really do much.
You missing after that.
Yeah.
Oh, you did it on purpose then. You just chalk it up as it was a tactical play. And you just wanted to chill after that. You just wanted 2 minutes of fire.
That was scary. That was a scary moment. But overall it was one of the best games that I played in.
Yeah. Man, that's awesome, dude. You've had such a long, massive career, and I think like we could run through each season by season. I think we're gonna have highs and lows, all the sort of pieces and parts in it. Man, I think that obviously for me is the pinnacle, and I think obviously it is very much for you as well. So from a career side of things, man, I want to finish on that note. Obviously, there's been other things you're still playing today, man. One of the things that I'd really love to know as well is your longevity in the game, and I said it to you when we caught up before we even did this thing. Man, I think that's what like legitimately impresses me so much. The fact that you're 35 now. You're 36 in December.
And I'm 35 on Sunday.
Oh, sorry. That's 34. Right. Sorry.
Yeah, that's right. You're only a month. I need those extra days. Huh? Come on, please.
you're like 6 weeks older than me, and I still get it wrong. All right, sorry. So you're 35 in a couple of days. Yep. My apologies. Man, there's so many people that they wrap up their careers. Even by the time they're 30 or very early 30s, they kind of wrap it up and they call it a day on the whole thing. Man, you're still performing, you're still playing at the same quality and level that you did maybe even in your formative years in those mid-20s in the A-League as well. You're still dominating, still playing really well. Man, what do you think has been the keys to your longevity piece that you're still playing, man? Like I know you say like your body still gets sore, man, and all the rest of it, which is understandable, but man, how are you still playing at this age and still, still competing at such a high level?
Yeah, I think
not to say that you're old, but I'm just saying you know what it's like, man. Most people are dropping off by the time they're 30.
Yeah, I'm definitely on the older side of things. I know that now, but
Which is what I'm saying. You're still playing at that good level and you're not getting injured all the time. You know what I mean?
Well, I think in my whole career, I think I had maybe 2 or 3 maximum muscle injuries, right? And I think, for a player that, doesn't have that many sort of soft tissue injuries, it's not really heard of these days, A lot of players are sort of out for a few weeks or a few months. And so I think that in that regard, I've been lucky, but, I've also looked after my body as well.
Yeah.
I bought some recovery things, especially while I was overseas, like the Normatex and Game Readies and, things like that. You do extra at home.
Yep.
Getting to bed early. I know it sounds simple, but, I did that a long time during my career, make sure that I always got 7-8 hours, every night. And
so getting the proper recovery.
Yeah, I think that in the long run, stretching, my dad took me, I was doing like sort of some gymnastics sort of thing when I was younger, like stretch. Really? It was mainly like stretching and things like that. It was actually the Westwoods gym. I did it with some other guys that were sort of around my age and just things like that. I think they all help, in the long run. What else? Yeah, I mean, for me, playing at this age, like you said, a lot of the players around my age have sort of dropped off now, and I guess the time where I did have the bad injuries were the bone ones, and a meniscus in my knees. I've had a few surgeries in my knees, but like nothing, sort of that bad that I couldn't come back from, and. Like I said to you before, I think choices, when you have choices on sort of, if you want to do this or do that, I think in the long run, they all sort of build up, and help your body sort of perform at a longer level.
Yeah.
So
yeah, sweet, man. No,
eating the right foods. Like, I do.
Just looking after yourself properly.
Yeah, I do.
Just not being an idiot about it, right? It sounds like you're just being sensible.
Yeah, I mean, I do enjoy myself, I'm not going to lie. Like, I pick the right times to go out and, enjoy myself. Yep. But, I think I think it's just doing the right things that, when it matters, when you do have games and stuff, you got to make sure you're feeling good for those games and training and stuff. And there's no real magic to it. I wouldn't say,
it's just doing the simple things properly.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah. Man, I love it. I've got a few things I want to finish up with that are just like almost like rapid fire things around like high performance. I'd love your take on it. But one final thing I wanted to ask you as well. Now, one period of time we didn't touch on in your career was your time in the Saudi, where you did well. Yeah, obviously a lot of people go there from an income perspective, make a good packet while they're there. You look at Ronaldo, right? Highest paid player in the world by a ridiculous amount because he's there.
Crazy, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Man, even in terms of, I would just love to know from a wealth creation perspective and even like passing on, or just like, I'd love to know, in your opinion, like your thoughts around wealth creation, especially being an athlete, and then even anything you could pass on to the younger generation coming through that might be making good money now, and maybe some lessons for them as well.
Yeah, I think for me, being a footballer, it doesn't go forever, right? So everyone knows that. And up until I went to Korea, I wasn't really, saving, not because I wasn't really trying to save, but it's hard to save when you're in Australia. The contracts aren't as high as overseas in some countries. And for me, it was always a goal to play overseas, not just for football, but financially to try and help me once I do finish, which it's coming up. So. I think players need to be smarter these days, especially when they're earning good contracts to be able to invest it in something that's going to help them post football. And better than anyone, that's going to help, accumulate your wealth as you get older. Things grow, property grows, as you know, and I think it's smart for footballers and any athlete, to be honest, just to look after themselves. When they are earning those contracts that can help them. Obviously going to Saudi, that helped me to an extent. And I think players need to be smart in how they sort of spend that money that they earn when they're earning their best contracts, which is usually from 27, to 30, 31, 32 maybe. When you're at your peak of your career, that's when you need to sort of, banking some of that money.
Be doing something wise with it, right? And you've done that, man, which is good. And I know you don't obviously want to go into a portfolio side of things, but man, I think it's cool looking from the outside in at what you've even done for yourself from a wealth creation side, man. And it's intelligent, you know what I mean? Like I've seen a lot of athletes. I've worked with a lot of athletes in the property space who've come to work with me, either post career or they're right at the end of the career. And I'm like, man, like you're making like this silly bank, 5 years ago, and we've got nothing to start with now. We've got a couple of years left in your career, and I love it, man. Because I know you said to me like, if you can give something back to people in this journey, potentially at this point in their careers as well, or coming through, it's to kind of have that in the back of their mind about like, make sure wealth creation is part of what you're trying to do, because exactly as you said, the career is not going to be forever. You never know when someone's going to have. We don't want anyone obviously to ever have a career-ending injury, but you never know when something like that comes through. Or you never know when
it happens,
you have a couple of mad years and then you fall off the perch, and you just never know. You could make heaps more than you're making right now, but like ultimately you have to store some of it away, because especially as a professional athlete, the ability of you probably making the same money that you're making now, or when you're in your most peak years, to make that again is probably not going to happen.
It's very hard,
So you've got to put some of it away, store it, invest it properly, and make sure you've got that kitty built up, for when the time comes when you've got to call the curtain on the show.
Yeah, I agree. I think for me, I had some older boys in my teams. When I was around 20, 21, when I'm first getting my contracts. These guys were, helping me or sort of pointing me in the right directions to make sure that I wasn't, stuffing my money around when I eventually had some money to buy something.
To play around with,
I think now I'm trying to give back to the young boys, and even just recently, one of the young boys went and purchased his first house, and I was really happy for him, because for me that did a lot for me when I was sort of growing up, and I think if I can give that back to the young boys now. That'll help them once they're my age, and they'll look back and think, he helped me get into, or he sort of pushed me into that direction. And that would help me, feel good about myself, that I've done the right thing by these young boys that are coming 100%. Through.
Guiding that next sort of gen coming through as well.
Yeah.
I love that, man. I've got a few questions to finish off with. I'd love to know your opinion on these few things, or a bit of advice around a few of these things too. What was the best piece of advice you ever got from a coach or a mentor, like through this journey going through, whether it's from Ange or someone else?
I think, just a general sort of thing is to, back yourself all the time, because there's times in your career, whether you're young, old, in the middle of your career, you're going to get someone that's going to say, you're not for me, or you're not good enough. And I think they're the moments where you sort of have to back yourself, and you're getting tested really. Like it's a test to see how strong you are and how much you want to, get to where you want to get to. So I think at all times just back yourself, know who you are, what you want, and where you want to get to. And I think those type of things. If you have that mentality, it doesn't matter if your coach says no to you, someone else will say yes, and your pathway will still be the same of where you want to get to, but it will just be a little bit different, And I think, for me that helped, at different times in my career where I wasn't playing or wasn't getting picked. And, I just said, what, if that's your opinion, I'm going to change it, or, you're going to, have to see me grow in a different club or something, So
for sure.
That was probably the best, advice that I sort of told myself, you know.
Yeah. And that'd be the same thing. Like if I was to ask like the best piece of advice you'd pass on to the next gen coming through, it would be along those veins. Like just back yourself.
I think so.
You're going to get times where you're going to get a no, and it's a matter of pushing past it, right?
Yeah, I think backing yourself, and sort of making those sacrifices that you sort of you need to make to give yourself the best shot at doing something with your career.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I love that, man. I love that, mate. I've only got one final one for you, because we've run through so much within your journey and everything as well, and I've really enjoyed this, man. Honestly, like. Man, I think we're about 2 hours in or so, man, and I'm still so wired into this chat, dude. Like I've loved it. You gave me goosebumps like an hour and 40 in. I was like, man, what's going on here?
It's great to catch up with you, bro.
Likewise,
it's been awesome.
Likewise, brother. Mate, my one final question for you is, now the podcast is top 1%, right? It's all about the highest performers, highest achievers. You've been around some big names, some big people, some great athletes, yourself obviously being one of them, but obviously, man, playing even in the Socceroos, you've played with some amazing people. I would love to know, and even being around Ange and everything as well, what do you think is the most defining character trait that you've seen consistently from the top 1% of people that you've been around?
I'd probably say there's a few people, to be honest. Okay. When I was in the Socceroos team, that's when you see like, you're hanging around with some top athletes,
100%.
Top mentalities, top mindsets.
Yep.
I think at that time it would have to be, and all together, right? It was Ange, the coach. Mile Jedinak, who was the captain, and Cahill. And they all had something that you like, that's pretty cool. Like I'm taking that from them, and I think, just in terms of the players like Cahill and Jedinak, obviously they were quite experienced. They've done a lot in their careers. They played in some top clubs and top leagues as well.
Of course.
They played a lot for the Socceroos, and I just saw their mentality like, things didn't get past them. Like when things were down, they would step up and they would say the right things to motivate people. Cahill more for like he's sort of he'll come on, he just wanted to come on and score like, and he just believed in himself. Like I just remember like we were in the World Cup and he was hanging to get on just to make an impact. Like, and he just had this confidence about him that it didn't matter about his age. Like he was 37, 38. Like he's close to 40 and he's still.
Was that the game where he scored the bomb against the Netherlands?
Nah, that was another World Cup. Yeah,
bro.
But like things like that, he
was an animal, man.
He pictured these things before they happened. Like, I think he even said it, before the game. And I know he said it in different games before, where he's like, "Boys, I'm going to score the winner today." Like that's just like top mentality. Yeah. You can't sort of, you can't make that. You can't and.
It's not even ego, right? It's literally belief.
Yeah, it's belief in himself and belief in what he can do, his ability. And I think, Jedinak was just so cool, calm, and collected, like with the ball, without the ball, which then, made me as a, someone that's making their debut at 27 think, you know what, I'm gonna try and be as cool and calm as him as well. He's sort of like, you sort of. It grows on you as a teammate and as a player, and I guess for Ange as well, it's his mentality. From the young teams to Brisbane to the Socceroos, if he believes in something, and I've never seen this before from any coach. Even when he's getting scrutinised in the media for a formation or a style of play or whatever, he just does not care about what anyone thinks. He doesn't change. And when he's got this thing in his head about the way that he wants his team to play, he just tries to get the team playing better at it. So, he doesn't change from how he sort of built us from the preseason to the end, or from the Australian games when he went to a back three. I was playing in a back three in Korea, and that sort of helped me at the time. He was getting scrutinised for playing a back three.
Yep.
He's like, you know what? I believe in this, and this is the way we're going to do it. And this is how we're going to be successful. And, I'm sure he's doing that now with Tottenham. And, I'm sure the boys get a big buzz out of, playing for him. And, for me, when I was playing for him, I felt like I could run through a big wall from him, And he just gives you that mentality, that confidence,
Yeah.
So for me, they were, probably the three guys that I was just like, these guys just believe in themselves so much in what they do and what they're about. Doesn't matter what scrutiny they're getting. It doesn't matter what they're saying in the media. They just got this belief about themselves, and that sort of grows on everyone else in the room. Or some of Ange's team talks were, you're talking about goosebumps. Like I'm telling you, every player had goosebumps in this room. Like before we went up for that game against Honduras in Sydney for the World Cup qualifier. Everyone was ready. Like he's telling you like you're not just playing for yourself today. You're playing for your families. All the sacrifices they've made for you to get to this place today, and they're all. When you walk out today, they're walking with you. And when he says things like that, it's like I'm getting goosebumps now just thinking about it.
I got all down my arm again, bro. Like you're G'ing me, bro.
Like man, he's talking about his dad who passed away. He's walking out with his dad who was who got him into football and made him into the person he is today, because he was also hard on him, growing up as well. And, it's that woke mentality, I think. But, I think, for me, it was those three were definitely.
It's funny, bro, because like I said to you at the very start, first athlete I've had on the show, and super excited to have you on and run through everything. And it's funny, man, when we finish off this thing and you bring up these three people and you start talking about the different things. And it's funny because I typically speak to business owners or people who are extremely successful in property business, entrepreneurs, all these sorts of things. Yep. And then when you go down an athlete route, which they have there's very different character traits that allow people to be successful in that front. They're always very similar, right?
Yeah.
But it's funny because sport, right? And so much of life is confidence, right? And when you're confident in something or you become very good at something and the confidence comes off the back of that, man, confidence breeds that self-belief. You know what I mean? And it's like, you were speaking about Timmy and just like knowing he was going to come out and score a goal. And dude, you'd come on and I would get goosebumps when he'd come on because everyone would be cheering. And dude, I'm watching it at home and I just know he's going to score, you know what I mean?
Just had that confidence about him, yeah.
Dude, I mean, he had the ability and I think, the ability probably spawned off each other, right?
Yeah, of course.
But then you say about Millet, but then obviously about Ange as well. Even when he's being scrutinized, he's like, no, the belief that this is going to work and that this is what works and keep hammering on that thing. The same as with Timmy with the belief. It's so funny to see, like, this is why I literally wanted to do this podcast so bad, because it just makes you realize these different things, these different traits when they formulate into these singular things, or they formulate into people as well. Man, that's what creates greatness. You know what I mean? And like leaning into these things as well. So it's so cool to unpack, man. And even like, with those people, like they're three huge names in Australian football. Like they're three names not going to be forgotten anytime soon, you know what I mean? For anyone that knows football in Australia. I mean, even Timmy, I think you have to be living under a rock to not know who Timmy Cahill is, right? So, man, it's been an absolute pleasure, honestly, running through this whole thing. And I really appreciate you sharing the story with me, man.
Pleasure to be here, man. And like I said, I think, for you, seeing all these different traits from all different types of people that are successful, I think, it'd be quite interesting to see. And, like I said, great to be here. Thanks for having me on. And, I look forward to seeing you be successful as well.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. Mate, I also appreciate you jumping on, sharing your story. It's been an absolute pleasure. Listeners, I hope you enjoyed the podcast. If you did, if you took some great value, make sure you send it on to someone else who you also think might love the podcast, love Matty's story, or anyone else, obviously, that's been in and around the football. I know you're going to take a lot away from this episode. If you know anyone that's coming up through the ranks, whether it's in football, it's whatever sport it is, and you think they could be either inspired or take a lot of value out of this thing as well, make sure you send this thing on. The whole idea of this thing is building people around you to thinking, talking, and acting like the top 1% so you can level yourself up into that field as well, or continue to dominate if you're in that position. If you're enjoying the podcast, please make sure you leave us a 5-star review. And if you're loving it, make sure you hit that follow or the subscribe button so you get hit every single time we drop a new episode. And I hope you guys enjoy the episode. Matty, thank you once again for tuning in. And until next week, guys, that's another Top 1% podcast.